Cunning Spark Mage,
Yeah.
Basilisk Collar combination.
Yeah,
There's a
Spark
lot of really
Mage
interesting
Collar.
things he's doing in this deck, you know?
Yeah, this is the thing about the Birthing Pod decks. They're able to kind of adjust things just because they have such a toolbox kind of thing with their creatures. It'd be really interesting to watch this. He does have a sword in the sideboard, along with a Bone Horde.
Interesting.
Sword of Feast and Famine, by the way.
Now, it's interesting. He's got the artifact removal in the sideboard, but it doesn't really help him as much. I mean, there's no question that the equipment package and I guess the metamorph and there's spell skites too.
Yeah,
that artifact removal is going to be very helpful.
It'll be live, yeah, looks like.
And then out of and Joe Lossett actually has Linvala, which is kind of an exciting plan.
Both guys have Linvala actually.
Oh, they do. They both.
Yeah,
have.
one.
Oh, he's got one main for his Birthing Pod package.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting with only 2 Nature's Claims and no artifact removal main deck. Joe Lossett's actually a little bit vulnerable to the Birthing Pods.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to see Birthing Pods that hit play and stay.
Yeah. They're gonna make an impact. But he's only got 2 Birthing Pods in the deck, so it's almost like he's kind of a Naya Fauna Shaman deck with a Birthing Pod backup strategy in a way. I mean, it can't be his primary strategy. I think he'd at least play 3. Because it's not like he has that much.
Oh, he's got the. See, Brian Boss has so much more artifact removal. He's got that Manic Vandal main deck, the Silvok Replica main deck, the Birthing Pod to give him additional ways to find it, multiple Acidic Slimes, 3 Divine Offerings out of the sideboard.
Yeah,
he's really.
he's set up.
It seems like he's going to have the. Plus, he's got the Cunning Spark Mage package, which. I mean,
just kills everything that's not an artifact.
That can actually beat those spell skids. I kind of think that he's going to have the advantage here. You know, I mean, Joe's deck comes out kind of fast with these Lotus Cobras and powering out, some of the big monsters. But I mean, all Joe really has is 2 Acidic Slimes to interact with. Although he does have the Venser and Jace, so he could try to reset them. But with just 2 Acidic Slimes and then just 2 Nature's Claims, he's a little bit less set up for the equipment battles.
Yeah, I mean, the Jace helps him manipulate quite a bit more than Brian, though.
Yeah,
so,
no, that's the big difference.
Draw the cards, yeah.
Seeing 4 Jaces versus 2 Birthing Pods and 2 Cunning Spark Mages. Because I think those Cunning Spark Mages have the potential to just rip Joe apart, who has no creature kill.
Yeah.
But Brian, very vulnerable to Jace the Mind Sculptor. No direct damage for the most part, not a lot of haste action beyond the. I mean, he's got Vengevines issue.
Right. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I guess we should make sure we don't talk about what's in the players' hands for sure while they're playing. So apparently the players are able to hear us. So we'll have to, I guess, change a little bit of the discussion.
Well, have we thought about? I mean, we have all the space.
Yeah.
We're as far away as we can.
Oh, is this?
Coordinate.
Okay. Yeah, I think usually for the events we have, we're closer to the majority of the players, and it's a lot louder. So I think because we're over here away from the crowd, they're a lot they can hear us a lot easier. So.
Corrupting the integrity of the event since 2011.
We were close enough that they could hear us.
Yeah, they could hear our discussion of the lists, so at least both players can hear
can we not move them back a little bit?
Or could we put a radio over there?
No, I mean,
it
seems like in the court has some slack.
Only about a foot.
Yes, probably.
I mean, it's not going to make enough difference to
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to watch what we say about what's in the players' hands.
Normally it's not a big deal, but we have no crowd noise right now. So.
Yeah, that's the issue, is that there's no crowd noise. So, just to let you guys know, anybody who's just joining us, I'm Joey Pasco here with Patrick Chapin. We're in Denver, Colorado, here in Invesco Field, Mile High Stadium, the stadium for the Denver Broncos. This is one of the coolest venues I've ever had the pleasure of playing Magic or commentating on Magic in. But we're here covering the Standard Open. Of course, always day one is covering Standard, and tomorrow we'll have Legacy. Begin with the top 4 of the Standard, actually, tomorrow. Today we've got 183 players. That's 8 rounds. We're heading into round 4 watching Joe Lossett versus Brian Boss. So, of course, the big question is, can the Caw-Blade Menace be dealt with? And we're trying to show you guys, at least highlight some other different kinds of decks rather than the typical Caw-Blade decks that are certainly out there, and we've already seen a couple. But looks like the players are taking a look at their openers.
Actually, surprise. Instead of Birthing Pod versus Blumanji, we actually have Caw-Blade Mirror again.
Yeah, we were joking. So, Joe leads on an island, and Brian leads on a Copperline Ridge. Or a Copperline Gorge, that is. I always get their names mixed up. Joe cracks a Misty Rainforest.
Looks like we're going to see either a Fauna Shaman or a Lotus Cobra.
Yeah.
Either way, very, very strong openings.
Yep.
And it looks like Joe comes from the school of basic land of Michael Jacob,
Yeah,
where you
revised.
intentionally play the white bordered basic land to make it easy for shuffling, so that when you're fetching, you can find them as fast as possible to save
Yeah.
you time. Which there's something to be said about that.
Yeah,
you know?
that's definitely.
Like for instance, I mean I don't know if Joe's colorblind, but I know Michael Jacob is, and so having white bordered basic land can
Oh wow, yeah. And
helps you identify them much quicker.
Oh, that's a
Spellskite,
not
one
what
of
we
the least
expected.
aggressive openings that Joe has. Probably a good indicator that Joe has a Jace the Mind Sculptor in his hand now. Because what hand is he going to keep that doesn't have a Lotus Cobra, a Fauna Shaman, a Stoneforge Mystic, or a Jace?
Yeah.
Like he's got to have something good, or he wouldn't have kept the hand.
So Brian adds a Fauna Shaman to his side of the board, and
What's that? Get louder? Get busy? Oh, we are being instructed to get louder.
Okay. So both players now have Fauna Shaman on the boards. So Joe plays a Fauna Shaman of his own and passes the turn back to Brian.
So now, did he intentionally wait a turn on playing the Fauna Shaman until he had a Spellskite down to protect it?
That's
Maybe he's under the impression that Brian did loot the Copperline Gorge.
Yeah.
The last thing he wants is to have his Fauna Shaman bolted.
Yeah, it's
That's
very
interesting.
likely. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll just go back to the way we were.
Okay, so we're
So
good.
it looks like Fauna Shamans are facing each other, facing down. Now, in this type of a battle, how likely is it that they'll be on the Vengevine plan versus how likely are they going to try to set something up? You know, like for instance, is Brian going to try to set up the Spark Mage Collar package? I mean, Joe is a lot more like brute force. You know, he's not trying to set things up so much as just try to get as much value as he
Yeah,
can.
right.
You know, like either
he doesn't have the Birthing Pod package.
Brian is, interestingly, probably the control deck. Now, he might be trying to set up the Vengevines anyway, just because sometimes the best way to stop somebody else's Vengevines is to block with all of yours.
So Brian did activate Fauna Shaman, discarding a Vengevine to get another Vengevine. So it looks like he's on the Vengevine plan.
Oh, wow, just drawing the collar naturally, though. Now, the interesting thing is it looks like Brian doesn't have a...
Third land.
Yeah.
And is that, what is that?
Sylvan Ranger.
Okay.
Yeah, are you sure you didn't get the Sylvan Ranger?
Maybe he did.
Yeah, 'cause I'm pretty
Maybe
sure he
that's
got
what
the
it was.
Sylvan Ranger, because
Okay.
he had multiple Vengevine in his hand already. I
Oh,
couldn't
that-
imagine... Yeah, I can't imagine he'd want to get a third Vengevine.
I couldn't see what card it was, and then I saw the Vengevine on top of his hand and assumed that that was what it was. So you're right, it was probably the Sylvan Ranger.
The Sylvan Ranger adding such a nice element. I mean, this is the textbook example. You know, Brian goes from being a little mana screwed to
Yeah.
having the perfect mix of mana. You know?
Yeah.
And he can continue to activate his Fauna Shaman like he needs to try to keep up. Now, the fact
So-
that Joe has a Bird of Paradise and a little bit more board presence and more land naturally, Joe's going to temporarily have a mana advantage, and he's probably going to try to play some big boom boom. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if right here he goes and gets like, I mean, I don't know if he's got a land in his hand, but if he goes and gets either a
Frost Titan.
he gets either
Consecrated
yeah, either
Sphinx.
Sphinx or Titan if he has a land, and if he doesn't, I won't be
A
surprised if he
Acidic
go
Slime.
get a Acidic Slime.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Probably an indicator that he does not actually have the land,
Yeah.
or if he does have the land, that he wants to Fauna Shaman again.
Yeah. So.
So really
Joe-
interesting kind of back and forth in these matchups where both people get to be using their Fauna Shamans, you know? Like it's this
Yeah,
thinking man's
it's-
chess match where each can try to counter the other, and the fact that it's not a straight mirror makes for a lot of interesting decisions, especially since they don't have perfect information about each other.
So Joe
Oh, wow.
adds that Acidic Slime to the board and
attacking Boss's mana base.
Yeah, hits Brian's red
This could
mana
be a
source,
crippling
the
blow.
Copperline Gorge.
Wow, Fauna Shaman just getting in there. He figures
Yeah.
that at this point he's got such an advantage on board. He'd love it if Boss just discarded, you know, if
Just-
Boss somehow was willing to trade.
Yeah, and looks like he is.
Wow.
Yeah,
I don't think
so-
Joe expected him to call here.
No, I don't think so either. And Brian activates his shaman.
Now, is he going to get a Bird of Paradise? Almost surely.
Yeah,
He's only
there
got the
it
one
is.
Sylvan Ranger.
So Brian just trying to kind of get back into the game mana-wise.
Well, I mean, like, he plays the Bird of Paradise next turn. He can conceivably try to set up a 2-spell turn.
Yeah.
You know,
Two
relatively
cre- two
soon, get a
creatures,
couple
yeah, that-
Vengevines back and stabilize.
That could be huge. I mean, top deck.
And he needed to it's weird that Joe sent the Fauna Shaman there anyway. I mean, it seemed a little greedy, because once you have this mana advantage, you have another Acidic Slime in your deck. Just do it to him again next turn.
Yeah.
Just Acidic Slime him to death.
And he does. I think he's got 2 birds, but just one green mana source, unfortunately.
So I think we're going to see him play a Bird of Paradise and the Basilisk Collar.
Yeah, collar, one of those equipments that you certainly don't mind drawing.
No, and he gets it on the table.
Yeah.
Gives him an opportunity to, at some point, threaten to gain enough life to get back in it if he falls behind, or
Yeah.
to set up the Collar package, obviously, the Collar Spark Mage combo, which is probably going to be very effective against a band deck.
So he passes the turn back to Joe. Joe adds a Verdant Catacombs to the board.
So now he's got Stoneforge Mystic in his hand. What's going to be his play here? What's he going to get?
Well, he attacks with Acidic Slime. Cracks his fetch
Wait,
land.
does he have a Sword of Feast and Famine in his hand?
Didn't
Looks like
say.
he looks like he has Sword of Feast and Famine in his hand. If he has a Sword of Feast and Famine in his hand, it seems really wild to not just play it and equip.
Play equip, yeah. But it looks like he's going with Stoneforge. Yeah. So he plays his Stoneforge.
But you could be doing all this for free if you had if you had just.
Yeah, he could have just equipped, got in, and then untapped all those lands and just done all this as well. So maybe he didn't have it in his hand. I don't know. Well, there's a Sword of War and Peace, so it seems to me that he must have it in his hand.
I mean,
I think that would be the first.
I've seen a few Sword of Feast and Famines in my day. I'm pretty sure he had it in his hand, but.
Yeah,
we'll
I just
see.
did, when you asked, he already had it face down, so I didn't even get a chance to look. Is that a Phyrexian Metamorph? It is. So Phyrexian Metamorph, copying Acidic Slime, destroy your forest,
Devastating.
and that was the second creature of the turn.
At
Does
least
he
it
not
was
have
a mountain.
Vengevines? Does he not have Vengevines in his?
He doesn't. He discarded a Fauna Shaman.
Oh,
to his
okay,
Fauna Shaman
okay.
earlier.
For some reason, I thought he also had a Vengevine, but yeah.
No. So now Boss has a mountain. What's he going to advance? I mean, there's
Manic
something.
Vandal your Spellskite from Brian Boss.
You got to do something.
Yeah.
Why not hit the Metamorph?
That's what I was thinking, but
Just nug him for 2. Maybe he just wants to be sure to kill the Metamorph.
or the Spellskite. Or yeah,
the Spellskite, yeah. I don't know. I nug him for 2.
All right, so
We're seeing he's deciding what to do with his swords.
right now Joe has a Birds of Paradise, Phyrexian Metamorph copying an Acidic Slime, and a Stoneforge Mystic on the board. He activates his Stoneforge Mystic to drop a Sword of War and Peace into play, and he looks like he's going to equip it to the Bird of Paradise. So
See,
much more
I think
threatening bird.
I don't know. This feels like this might be one of those times where you're making, throwing good money after bad. Where, like, he realizes, I can tell by the motions of his hand, he realized he should have played the Sword of Feast and Famine before.
Mhm.
He doesn't want to play it now, almost out of pride,
Just
just to not, he doesn't want to. But we'll see. I mean, maybe he just really, really wants Brian to have as many cards in his hand as possible for that sort of War and Peace. But
yeah, that could be it. I mean,
it could also be that he figures the only way he can lose is if he makes Brian discard more Vengevines and has to face down the quad Vengevine draw.
yeah. So he passes the turn back to Brian after getting in there with the bird and the Acidic Slime.
Yeah.
Brian down to 11 and Joe back up to 20 because of that Sword of War and Peace.
Now, does Brian actually have a 1-drop elf or bird? Like he doesn't.
I thought he had another bird.
Because if he has a bird, he can just drop the Squadron Hawk and the bird and get back with Avenge Vines and have something going on.
Oh, he's
no, he doesn't.
scooping it up. I for some reason thought I saw another bird, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think that was a
tough to
broken
tell.
pod.
Okay.
Was the green card in his hand.
So yeah.
And Joe is the winner, game 1. In this case, it was just, Joe actually had the Bird of Paradise early, whereas Brian was a little light on mana. And when both players have access to Fauna Shaman to get whatever they need, Joe was able to find land destruction, multiple land destruction, a land destruction spell, and then copy it in order to give him the tempo. This format very tempo oriented.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Stoneforge Mystic making an impact in that game, but not surrounded by the typical spells you see surrounding Stoneforge Mystic. Definitely something a little different here. So that's good. Those of you just joining us, I'm Joey Pasco here with Patrick Chapin, and we're watching round 4 of the StarCityGames.com Open Series in Denver, here at Mile High Stadium. Pretty exciting. As you can see on our splash screen there, the M12's coming up, already on sale on Star City. I guess the boxes and the packs and things like that. Are singles up for sale yet? Because we don't have too many singles spoiled at the moment, but we do know a handful. We do know that we're going to see Inferno Titan. We're going to see Gideon.
We are.
We're going to see Sorin. And then there's a number of new cards that we've seen. Dungrove Elder is one of the new guys that's showcasing the new keyword for Troll Shroud, Hexproof.
There's the Bloodthirst being pushed much harder than it was before in Ravnica block. Like that Bloodthirst Dragon.
Yeah, what is
he's like a
Furyborn Hellkite, I think?
This is like 7 mana for a 6/6 flyer, and if your opponent's taking any damage, he gets 6 +1/+1 counters.
He's huge.
So he's just a straight up 12/12.
Yeah, it seems very.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, in the decks that want to abuse Bloodthirst, it seems like it's not that difficult to hit the Bloodthirst.
I think Bloodthirst is a much maligned ability where a lot of people remember it as being somehow not that great or whatever, but that was only because none of the Bloodthirst cards really pushed for Constructed that much. I think
we had like Scab Clan Mauler.
Which was
good card. Fine. That's what I'm saying.
Bloodthirst is an interesting skill testing and fun, exciting mechanic. I think that it's going to work out really well if they just push it a little bit harder, because I think they were a little too conservative with it before.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely there's that new one, the Vampire, is like Bloodlord. I'm gonna get the name, but it's like the promo card for M12. It's a 3/3 flyer for black and 3, so like the Send Your Vampire mana cost there, with Bloodthirst 3, and I think vampires you control gain Bloodthirst 3. So
Bloodthirst 3.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like I'm gonna double check just to get the actual wording. It was.
Sometimes some of the stuff that we've seen so far from M12 isn't even direct evidence. It's the sort of secondhand stuff to make you wonder what's going to happen next. Like, I mean, the fact that, Sorin Markov is replacing Liliana in the set, and it's the Sorin reprint. And Gideon is being reprinted, replacing Ajani. We haven't actually, we can tell from the promos that Jace and Chandra and Garruk are going to be in the set.
But we don't know
what versions, right? And the fact that,
versions,
Sorin and Gideon being the same, they're new cards to the set. It's not surprising.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we see at least a new Garruk and a new Chandra. Now, Chandra, we might see Chandra Ablaze. I think there's a good chance we'll see Chandra Ablaze.
Why is that? What makes you think that?
Just because there's a version of her that already exists that hasn't been in a core set.
Okay. I feel like Aaron Forsythe has said things on Twitter that Chandra Ablaze was not a mistake, but just not much of a hit. So I would be surprised for them to.
Yeah, in that case, I mean, it very well maybe it's the third Planeswalker that there's a third version of, or the first that there's a third version.
Yeah.
Jace. It'll be interesting to see if he's Bolarin or a new version.
Yeah.
There's no way in the world he's the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, I mean, there's people out there definitely trying, saying, trying to like figure out the logic, saying, geez, the Mind Sculptor could be reprinted, but
I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually an even more powerful version of Jace that costs like 5 or 6 mana. So it's not as good.
That'd be interesting.
But it's just,
And we would also, so that would mean we'd lose both Jaces.
at once. Right?
Yeah.
And then the other one that's really interesting is Garruk, because some of the cards that the people have been talking about for Garruk, they have Garruk's name in it. You know, because there's like Liliana's Caress, Liliana's Spectre, and so on.
Right, we've got Gideon's Avenger and Gideon's Lawkeeper.
Like Garruk's Packmaster before played really well with Garruk Wildspeaker.
Yeah.
The new Garruk cards that we've been hearing about have nothing to do with Garruk Wildspeaker at all.
Yeah, it's Garruk's Horde. It is a 7/7 for green 5. It's a rare. Trample.
5 green, 7/7 trample.
Yeah.
With the top card of your library revealed, you may play the top card if it's a creature card.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the Garruk Planeswalker that we know.
Although it looks like it might have something to do with Worldly Tutor type stuff. You know, maybe the Garruk in some way has a Worldly Tutor ability.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Doesn't that seem like the type of thing?
It does. It seems like a very good, green ability that Garruk could certainly have.
All I know is that I got a pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a new and exciting version of Garruk. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Garruk Wildspeaker is awesome. I mean, he's a classic. He was the original.
Yeah, he was the first really good Planeswalker, I think.
And he's been good this whole time. I mean, he's still a fine card. Yeah. Despite, cards like Gideon and Jace and Koth and Tezzeret getting printed, Garruk still shows up and puts up modest numbers.
Yeah, forecasting class Planeswalkers tend to show up.
Alright, so it's going to be interesting to see how the match evolves now that they both have access to, obviously Joe now has his Linvala package, and where he had none main deck, he gets to board in 2.
Yeah, so
whereas Brian Boss has a little bit more ways to access his because of the birthing pod. However, because of it being a legend, it'll be interesting to see if the first Linvala kills the other one, and then the second Linvala sticks.
Yeah.
Because Brian really, he's got the Spark Mage package, but that doesn't stop Linvala.
So both players lead on a Scarsduel and a Bird of Paradise.
That's exactly what they want to be doing.
Yeah, and there's
the turn 2 birthing pod. This is going to get out of hand pretty quickly if Joe can't produce an answer.
So Brian has a Bird of Paradise and a Birthing Pod in play to Joe's lone Bird of Paradise. And let me read your Birthing Pod.
Now, a lot of people just imagine that Birthing Pod is like Fauna Shaman, and while it has some similarities, the fact that it puts the creature directly in play and nets you mana, like it lets you upgrade your guys, super powerful, especially when combined with creatures with 1/8/7 abilities like Sylvan Ranger and Manic Vandal and the Titans and Stoneforge and so on.
So Joe just adds a land and passes the turn back to Brian. Brian plays a third Copperline Gorge there.
So what's he thinking here? He knows that Joe's got to have a ton of 2-drops, like Lotus Cobra, Fauna Shaman, and Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah.
Why would he hold 3 mana up? What's he going to do? So that's what he's trying to figure out, because if he had a Divine Offering, he would have used it before,
Before he had a chance to use the Birthing Pod.
Right, so what's Joe's plan? What's Joe doing here?
That's a good question.
First thing, you got to think that Joe's going to play a Jace next turn. Because Joe's got to have some way to further his own game plan. Why would Joe hold up the mana unless he was going to try to react in some way?
I'm trying to look at his reaction.
There's got to be something. Does he really just have all land? Is this some kind of a bluff?
So is that a...
Sylvok Replica. Most likely fodder to be upgraded by Birthing Pod.
Yeah. And he activates the Birthing Pod, sacrificing the replica.
No, this is pretty much just going to go get a Vengevine, right?
Seems like a good plan. Right now, he's got the...
Linvala, that's right. Yeah, of course.
Shuts down the birds.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah, getting that Linvala advantage so big in this matchup.
And it's just opponents. That's what that makes things really interesting.
Absolutely. Linvala has been as long as people have been playing these Naya and Bant decks, Linvala has been an important puzzle piece.
I remember people kind of talking a lot about her last year at Grand Prix DC, and when those Naya decks were
being talked about and eventually losing to Blue White.
Yeah, I played the Naya Vengevine list at GPDC. Lost to Ben Hayes actually going into contention for day 2 and lost to Ben Hayes.
So we have Grizzly Bears entering the table.
Yeah, Fauna Shaman is now just Grizzly Bears.
Now, another answer. Joe actually has Jaces, which are another answer.
Yeah, that's
kind of interesting because you can play the Jace, bounce the Linvala, and then get a turn to use your Fauna Shaman to find a more permanent solution, like another Linvala of your own.
Exactly, right.
So Joe's got a lot of counterplay, but this Vengevine's going to start putting a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah, there we have a Vengevine from Brian, swinging in alongside Linvala.
Yeah, so Brian right now, a Bird of Paradise, Birthing Pod, 4 land, Linvala, and he's about to upgrade his Vengevine. What's going to
Acidic
get?
Slime?
That's his only 5. He's going to hit the Acidic Slime and just try to keep Joe off of mana. You know, because
Yeah.
he's aware that
Yep.
as soon as Joe has 4, he can start doing things like playing Jace or
Right.
Linvala.
And that bird is nothing. Yeah, Brian,
I think it's too far ahead. At this point, he's got to use Birthing Pod too much. Like, even like next turn, like, even if Joe plays a land, he's not going to have enough mana to play Linvala or Jace. And regardless, as long as that Birthing Pod's in play, things are spiraling out of control. Next turn, Brian's going to be able to upgrade his Acidic Slime into a Titan.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah.
this is what Brian's deck's supposed to do. You know, you play a Bird of Paradise on 1 and your Birthing Pod on 2. If you get to, like, if a Birthing Pod deck gets to Birthing Pod every turn, there are a lot of people are not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah, Vengevine alongside Birthing Pod seems really sick.
It's kind of exciting too that that Brian has Birthing Pods, so that even if he loses the Linvala battle in Game 3, he can still be Birthing Podding.
Yeah.
I guess as long as you have a Birthing Pod, you're never really going to lose the Linvala battle. I mean, you eventually.
Yeah. Just have another one.
Birthing Pod is so strong.
There's Brian adds a Cunning Spark Mage to the board and then uses it to take out that birds, and then is now using it to sacrifice to Birthing Pod to get
Another Acidic Slime.
Phyrexian Metamorph,
Yep.
copying Acidic Slime, kill your other land.
So once again, it looks like both of these decks, they both have the strategy of, if they can just get ahead of the other person, templing them out, you know? Like keeping them stunted on mana and just building an advantage every turn.
Yeah, so Joe basically,
Yep, Joe is...
he blocked the Acidic Slime.
Yeah, so at this point, Joe is down to just 2 land versus Brian's 4 land, Linvala, Bird, Phyrexian Metamorph of an Acidic Slime, and Birthing Pod. Joe dropping to 9 life after using his Verdant Catacombs. It's really hard to imagine what sequence of plays he can have here, because that Birthing Pod ensures that Brian is going to have the best card in his deck every turn.
Yeah, Joe adds a Lotus Cobra to the board. I don't even know that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Lotus Cobra could be the ticket to him getting out of this somehow, but Brian Boss is going to have to do something about that, you know? Like, he's got access to anything he wants.
Yeah, it seems like...
The Metamorph currently has a casting cost of 5, so he can turn it into an Inferno Titan.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Like the
Right,
Inferno Titan. Okay, so he's gonna...
Well, he chooses to sack the bird. What's he gonna go get?
Something for 2.
Stoneforge, maybe?
Well, he passed by Stoneforge to not Stoneforge. Spell Skite.
Maybe he does. He might not realize that the Metamorph costs 5 right now.
Yeah, because it seems like going for an
Just getting
Inferno
Inferno
Titan
Titan
seems
seals
so
the
good
deal.
right now, yeah.
It's
So
tough
now,
here.
okay, so he did decide on a Stoneforge Mystic. And Stoneforge lets him tutor up a...
Is it gonna be a Bone Horde?
No, it looks like
Sword of Feast and Famine. Just keeping the beats going, huh?
Yeah, and it's going to let him reuse all that mana, and unfortunately it doesn't untap the Birthing Pod, but
Joe packing it in.
yeah.
So, another game. It looks like both this matchup very, very dependent on trying to get ahead of the other person on mana.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, what we've seen be like the key plays in both of these games have been Acidic Slime your land, Metamorph copying Acidic Slime on your land. You know, both players have done that now. I've seen it from both sides.
Metamorph's a really interesting card that we're going to see even more of as time goes on. I mean, it's already starting to break out in Type 2, both in Birthing Pod decks, decks that are just playing it just because it's a good card, and Callblade decks.
Yeah.
And if it's good enough for Callblade, I mean, and
a 3 casting cost, more versatile clone.
it's better than Clone in so many ways. The fact that it can copy a Batterskull, it can copy equipment, or it can you can play for 3 or 4. You know, the fact that it turns the thing into an artifact if you have some way to get paid off of that, like for instance Metalcraft. You know.
Yeah.
Like I know Phyrexian Metamorph was super good in the Surtark deck that Kibble was working on.
Yeah.
And
that was a really interesting list that you know, he wrote about it in his article this week. Unfortunately, I know he didn't do very well in Singapore with it.
he top 64.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's right. He came in exactly 64.
Yeah, he top 64.
Right? Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with top 64.
No.
It's not, I mean, obviously, he probably would have
Wanted to
top
do
8 at the
better,
Grand
yeah.
Prix if he played Callblade, but he's fighting the good fight.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, like, how long has that deck really been around? You know, a week. he had hardly any time to really tune it and
Well, I think
instead.
it's derivative though of the blue-black infect deck that he's been working on for so long.
Okay.
You know, he's been working on ways to try to fight Callblade with blue-black.
Kind of ironic since he is
One of the Godfathers.
Yeah.
He's one of the originals. He's the person who named Callblade Callblade.
Yeah.
And Frankenstein's monster, though, has definitely escaped any possible controls that the creators once had over it. I wonder if there's a part of him that feels bad. I think you just kind of have that as a badge of honor.
Yeah,
you know?
like I created.
When you
that
create a
deck.
monster, God, there's nothing like when you create a card that gets a card banned. When you make a deck that gets a card banned, like it's just so sick of the deck.
To the scorekeeper station.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, what exactly happened in Frankenstein at the end.
I mean, so there's like Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
There's Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein.
I just mean the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein kind of thing.
The original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yeah, well, you know what
the
I mean.
original,
The
right,
original
sure.
story.
The original
by
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Sure, absolutely.
The original story by Mary Shelley is what I mean.
Oh, yeah. So going into Game 3, and yeah, I don't know, just because of the fact that there's been so many different versions over the years.
I'm having trouble remembering how it ends, but
I'm pretty sure it ends with bannings.
Yeah.
Frankenstein gets banned. It's the only way around it. So now that Joe is back on the play, he's got a. I mean, it's looking like we're seeing a matchup that being on the play is just huge because neither player really has that many great ways to get ahead tempo-wise beyond. Obviously, if Joe keeps a hand that doesn't have a bird, Brian can play a bird and gain a little bit of an advantage that way. But Joe is still going to have the first 2-drop to the party.
Right.
And this definitely seems to be a matchup where the 2-drops shine.
One more person for a $10
Yeah, now do you think at this point the Nature's Claim, now that he's seen Birthing Pod,
If you are
if he didn't already know it was Birthing Pod that he was
taking
playing
a
against?
tour around the state.
No, I mean, he's
You have
going to
a 20-minute
play
window.
anyway.
Yeah.
The fact that he saw Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, oh, that's right, that's right.
When you see White Man
So
and
if you want
Standard
to
Hero and
see a bit more of
Stoneforge
the
Mystic,
stadium, come on up to the main stage right now. Adam's going to be taking a tour in
that's
just a
exactly
couple
what
of
Nature's Claim
minutes.
is for. You know?
Yeah, so does it seem like Joe tries to get on that Linvala plan?
Well, I think they're both going to be on the Linvala plan, because whenever one of them has
Shuts the
Linvala,
other
it
one
shuts
down.
the other one's ability to Stoneforge. You can't forge down Batterskull.
Yeah, no shaman.
You can't
Basically,
Fauna Shaman.
the only
Right.
action is
You
Birthing
can't-
Pod.
You can't Cunning Spark Mage, you
Yeah.
can't Birds of Paradise. You know, you can't even use Silva Replica. You can't do much of it. So it looks like, did Brian go to, yeah, they both had 7.
Okay.
It's always interesting seeing Magic players do the shuffle of the cards in their hand over and over again when they're thinking. Just recently, Phil Ivey lost a prop bet at the World Series of Poker. He was
Yeah.
one of 3 poker players who had a $2,000 prop bet, where the first one of them to shuffle poker chips during the World Series had to pay the other 2 $1,000 each, and Phil Ivey ended up losing.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, because
Just-
you don't think
just-
about it.
Yeah, just do it. It's just like a mindless habit. So Brian going to
dropping to 6,
6, and he's on the draw.
and he's
so
on the draw.
Not
It's going to be tough. However, I mean, he does have a lot of things. He has a lot more angles that he can exploit. However, it looks like Joe has the consistency. You know, I mean, I guess that comes with not having as much toolbox action, and
All right, players, tours
you know, just doing the same thing over and over
Right,
again.
right. He's got the.
If
he's
you
got
want
the-
a chance to get down
Joe is
on the
actually
field,
playing
check it out during the
a
day.
hybrid of
Adam's gonna be
Callblade
taking everybody down.
and
We're going to make sure that
Blue
everybody's
As
back
much as
here
we've
in
been
time
looking
for
at
the
the
next
Fauna Shaman
round.
aspect of the deck,
No problems there.
at the end of the day, he's playing a deck with 4 Stoneforge Mystics and Portuguese Mind Sculptors.
Yeah, that's
You know,
that's true. That's
he's got very, very, very different support cards. Almost every other card in the deck, except for the equipment, is totally different. He doesn't
Yeah.
share that many cards with the Callblade deck, but he's playing a Callblade deck. He's got, I mean,
He's got-
the Jaces and the Stoneforge Mystics and the equipment package. You know,
instead of call,
Attention
he's
Magic
playing.
players in $10
Yeah,
draft
sure.
for 2.
Right.
this is a Blue
$10 draft for 2. Please
Callblade
report to the
hybrid.
assignments area where Joe
Blade.
is going to get you started. Once again, players in $10 draft for 2 to the assignments area, please.
Brian going to 5. We
Oh,
may have an
no.
anticlimactic finish.
Players, as the
But,
story is
I
starting
mean,
to go,
the nice
you
thing
want
about
to
these
pick up
decks,
on it? Just
they've
follow
got powerful
that.
enough cards, they can come back. I mean, if you're
Right,
going to go to 5, getting cards like Fauna Shaman and Squadron Hawk and Stoneforge Mystic, you can, as long as you get 2 land and you know, a good 2-drop, he's running the classic Stoneforge Mystic in his lap. No. As long as you get a good, if you can get at least a good 2-drop and 2 land, you can get it done with 4 or 5 cards. You know, that's, I mean, when you have I mean, the same thing happened back in the day with Dark Confidant. People would play Dark Confidant, and sometimes you double mulligan, but you have a Dark Confidant, he catches right back up for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stoneforge Mystic and Squad. I mean, Stoneforge Mystic and Fauna Shaman definitely go that route a little bit.
Right.
Fauna
And he's
Shaman
got
not
the
quite as
Squadron
much,
Hawk,
but
too.
I mean, yeah, the Squadron Hawk not quite as much, but it can work particularly well if he has Vengevine action, you know? Because even at the double mulligan, if he plays a turn 2 Hawk on the draw,
He's right back
he can
up.
discard a Vengevine
Yeah.
and start getting busy on turn 3, you know? So Brian really, really wants to see 2 land and a good 2-drop, and he would not mind Bird of Paradise. Joe, just looking to have a reasonable mix of cards, you know? Just,
Yeah,
if he gets his land drops and plays some of his, you know, good 2-drops.
I think you said it earlier. Like both of these decks are so have such power at the 2 slot. I think both players would be happy with 2 lands and a good 2-drop.
So it looks like Boss has Vengevine, Cunning Spark Mage, Stoneforge Mystic, and
Acidic
a couple
Slime.
land, and Cunning Spark Mage now. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Stoneforge, Cunning Spark Mage, Vengevine, and 2 land.
Okay, I thought I
And
saw a
then one
Acidic
more.
Slime.
That's probably a 6 card, because
Okay.
he drew a card he drew the Vengevine for the turn.
Okay.
But that's a pretty good mix. Like, if he draws the 3rd land, he's right back in this.
So Joe plays his first spell of the game with Stoneforge Mystic.
Getting Sword of Feast and Famine, interestingly
Yeah.
enough. So with a Sword of Feast and Famine opening, it makes going to get, you know, when Brian plays his Stoneforge, it makes going to get Batterskull a lot less appealing.
Mm-hmm.
With the Spark Mage in hand already, is he going to go get the collar?
It seems like a good line of play to do that. And Birds of Paradise.
That's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
if he draws a land next turn,
So he's gonna look like he's gonna add his own Stoneforge to the board. So we've got dueling Stoneforges here. Let's see what Brian decides he's gonna get. Possibly the collar because he does have. Oh, he shuffles.
Looking at the
Batterskull.
Batterskull anyway.
Yeah, goes with the Batterskull.
despite the Sword of Feast and Famine. Well, let's see. Maybe he just has faith that he's going to be able to power through the Sword of Feast and Famine. I'm just concerned that he's going to end up losing too much tempo because in 2 turns when Joe starts Sword of Feast and Famining,
Yeah.
I mean, the Batterskull is going to be a little solstice. Little solace.
Funny though that he did choose Sword of Feast and Famine, given that that just gives Brian an opportunity to discard Vengevines.
We'll see. I mean, we can't see the texture of the rest of his hand.
Right.
It's possible that he just has enough expensive other stuff that he just wants the tempo.
So.
He's probably going to lead with Lotus Cobra, so as to try to be able to commit multiple threats to the board at the same time.
Yeah, looks like that's. Oh, looks like he's changing his mind here, or at least thinking about it again.
This is one of the scenarios where the game's going to hinge so much on whether or not Brian draws a land next turn. Because if you can draw a land and play that Spark Mage, it's going to make a world of difference, you know?
So Joe does add a Lotus Cobra to the board, then plays a Verdant Catacombs and
And
passes
ships
his
the turn. So is he holding Mana Leak? Does he even play Mana Leak? No, he doesn't even play Mana Leak. But I guess technically Brian doesn't know.
He's probably just going to violin a sword. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's got the Stoneforge Mystic. You're right.
Yeah.
Spark Mage hits. Brian draws the land.
He did draw the land, so.
Oh, Spark Mage in response. Spark Mage in response.
Yeah, that could
no.
so have.
Oh wait, maybe this is in response to the Spark Mage.
That could be.
If, yeah, I mean, if Joe responded to the Spark Mage with this, that's just a good play.
Right.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah, that makes a
we
lot
gotta,
more
we gotta
sense.
give Joe some credit here. So Joe with a Stoneforge Mystic.
Did he just
brings-
violin Batterskull? Yeah, he did.
He did.
So that's why he got the sword, because he already had the Batterskull.
Yep. And now Brian immediately takes out the Lotus Cobra. This was in response.
Yeah, makes a lot more sense that way. So,
Joe with the Batterskull and a Stoneforge Mystic. If he has one more land, he'll be able to equip it with a Sword of Feast and Famine. Doesn't look like he has the land though, which is the saving grace for Brian. It's really strange though. Brian, if he would have gone and got that Basilisk Collar, would be taken over right now.
yeah, he really would be, and it's not as if he didn't know that he had the Spark Mage. He had it in hand. It's just he had to rely on drawing land. But he also chose to go the.
But I mean, see, this is just so tough because once the Sword of Feast and Famine comes down, the Batterskull is going to be horribly outclassed.
Ooh, dismember for the Stoneforge while Brian's unable to
Batterskull's not even going to come down.
unable to activate.
May end up being fatal. Not getting that Basilisk Collar.
Yeah, absolutely huge.
And Joe leaving up 2 mana again so as to be able to Stoneforge down the sword.
So we have Birds of Paradise from Brian after he plays a Scar's Duel, the green-white one.
God, if you could have made the
Razor Edge
Basilisk
Thicket.
Collar right there.
Yeah, it would have made a
Putting down the Sword of Feast and
huge
Famine.
difference, yeah.
Now, Brian does have the Acidic Slime. So next turn, I mean, he's only going to get hit with it once, and he's going to just go to Vengevine. So it's not the end of the world. But,
It just seems like it could have been so much better had he
So-
gone with the collar.
So as long as Joe doesn't present too much more of an offense, Brian's line here is get hit with the Sword of Feast and Famine, discard Vengevine, play Acidic Slime, hit the sword, then play the Batterskull of his own, and more or less try to stabilize.
Yeah, if Joe can't... keep
All
him
he's
from
really
doing
hoping to
that,
draw
yeah.
right now is a Stoneforge Mystic to go get the Basilisk Collar. I mean, that's not true. I guess Birthing Pod would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it would get him
Whatever
there
he
just
wanted.
as well, right, yeah.
Joe dropping another Stoneforge Mystic. Very, very, very powerful. So does he go get the War and Peace? Is that his other option here?
I think that's probably what he does because of the Spark Mage. I mean, he has
He
to
could
worry
get a second
about
Basilisk
the...
Collar.
he's
Or he
going
has
with
the Batterskull, yeah, the second
Yeah.
Batterskull.
I would have thought he would have gotten War and Peace just because of the threat of the...
No, it's very possible he boarded it out.
Oh, okay, that's true, yeah.
Because, I mean, the protection from red and protection from white doesn't actually do that much against Brian.
hmm
Whereas, I mean,
it helps against the Spark Mage Collar combo, but that's not something he saw earlier, or maybe he just doesn't feel like that. It feels like that's not worth keeping it in for just that. So he passes the turn back to Brian. Brian goes with
we're going to have to see
5
Acidic
mana
Slime here,
for
right?
Acidic Slime, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there it is. So, kill your Sword of Feast and Famine.
Yep. And this is going to be the beginning of himself trying to grind his way back in, you know? Like, as it is now, even if it's just a couple Batterskulls and a couple Stoneforge Mystics, he could fight that with his own Acidic Slime, Cunning
Yeah.
Spark Mage,
He's got
Batterskull.
answers, yeah.
And eventually he's going to be setting up the Vengevines in the yard. He's got things he can do. Joe threatens to, I mean, Joe's got to try to advance things here and take advantage of the fact that he's temporarily ahead, you know?
Yeah, he's got to capitalize on his advantage.
So is that a Jace the Mind Sculptor? Looks like Joe's got a couple good options. He's got Vengevine, he's got Jace the Mind Sculptor, he's got Batterskull. He's got a couple different plays. Is he just going to try to Batterskull down, Stoneforge down his other Batterskull?
And it looks like that he's definitely doing something like that.
Yeah, that's the only thing you'd hold man up for.
Yeah, so he swings in with Batterskull. Brian blocks with Acidic Slime, so kills the Germ, kills the the Acidic Slime dies as well.
Fauna Shaman's an interesting draw.
Fauna
here.
Shaman from Brian.
Decides to play the Fauna Shaman instead of the Batterskull.
Yeah.
Now, as it turns out, the Batterskull wouldn't be a very good play because Joe could just drop Jace and bounce it immediately.
Yeah.
Gain an even bigger tempo advantage. But,
So Joe vials in the other Batterskull. So right now Joe's got 2 Stoneforge Mystics in play. One tapped, one
oh,
untapped.
he's got Divine Offering.
Oh, okay.
A nice play.
So we waited until Joe vialed in that other Batterskull.
Which he knew was going to come.
Yeah, exactly. And then
That's the perfect reason to only play your Fauna Shaman instead of your Batterskull.
yeah. So he
An excellent play by Brian.
plays a Divine Offering, and also, noticeably Joe has 2 mana up, not 3.
Yeah, and that 5 life boost is going to buy himself some much needed time to try to get back in this. Because if he can start using Fauna Shaman, Brian's deck is very capable of abusing the Fauna Shaman. I mean, he has access to, he's got artifact removal to try to keep the equipment under control. He can go get a Stoneforge to set up the Basilisk Collar.
Mm-hmm.
He can go get Linvala to shut that out. And Joe doesn't really have all that many answers to a Fauna Shaman.
Yeah, I mean, as far as
He's got Jace Bounce It.
that's about,
He's got Linvala.
yeah. Besides those, that's it. Like, as far as removal goes, he doesn't really have anything.
And it's going to be really tough to try to power through with just all Batterskulls, because the problem is, even if you have 2 Batterskulls,
Mhm.
the guy with 1 Batterskull can hold off 2 Batterskulls with just the 1.
Like,
Yeah, because 1 Batterskull blocks and gains enough life to prevent the other.
oh, right, okay.
Batterskull definitely favors the player who can go big or go
Mhm.
long.
Joe does have Dismembers in the deck. Forgot about that. So
How many Dismembers does he have
he's got
access to?
3 in the sideboard. So that
He
can
would
kill
for
the
sure have
Fauna
all
Shaman.
3 Dismembers. Now, he's already used 1, though.
Yeah. Right.
Here we see again Dismember showing up in
Mhm.
places where you
Where
normally...
it would not be normally, yeah.
So Vengevine, Jace, or Acidic Slime? What are we going to see? What are we going to see out of Joe to try to...
Well, he just decides to bounce his own Batterskull back to his hand. Odd, because it doesn't look like he has...
Well, no, that's on the end step, right? No, he did that main phase?
It looked like it. And it's really odd because he doesn't... Yeah, he did that during his main phase. And doesn't have a second mana to
well,
be able to
I guess he didn't want to have a Divine Offering, but that doesn't really matter, because when you... I think he thinks he might have more time than he does. Like, he's facing down a Fauna Shaman. He doesn't have this kind of time. Now, this is Brian on a double mold?
Yeah.
As we said, Brian had the powerful 2-drops and a good mix of mana. Maybe Joe was a little overconfident.
So,
Vengevine coming back. Brian really starting to gain some momentum here.
Yeah, so it looked like Fauna Shaman discarded Vengevine, get a Stoneforge Mystic, play another Stoneforge Mystic.
And now Brian has both Sword of War and Peace and Bonehorde in his hand, in addition to a dominating board presence. It's interesting they didn't get the collar this time either.
Yeah, that is. Did he pop? Would he have boarded it out? That seems like...
There's no way he would board it out, is there?
Not likely. I mean, it's too good, right? It seems
the combo is just so good against blue-green.
4 minutes.
4 minutes left in the round? Okay. Brian looking to have swung things.
He's going to have to play quickly.
Yeah.
Now, do they have any extra time? Yeah, they have a 7-minute extension, so they're easily going to finish in time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So yeah, Brian gets that Vengevine back, swings in with it, and also grabs a pair of equipment.
Joe with another Jace. I think he's been a little too conservative with these Jaces, like not wanting them to die. I think sometimes you just got to play Jace, use him one time, and know he's going to die.
So right now, Joe on board has 5 lands and 2 Stoneforge Mystics. And that's it.
Ships his turn again, about to drop the Batterskull.
Brian has 5 lands, 2 Stoneforge Mystics, and a Fauna Shaman, and a Vengevine, and a Cunning Spark Mage. And notably the
Batterskull, like it's known that he has Batterskull, Sword of War and Peace, and Bonehorde all in his hand.
Yeah, he's got plenty, and he's got a Phyrexian Metamorph too to copy any copy Batterskull if he'd like, or whatever. But
so from the looks of it, Brian has successfully taken a dominating position.
Yeah, that just completely swung the other way, just with that.
Well, I mean, like
Joe
was being way too conservative early on. I think he was just a little too overconfident. Brian, meanwhile, starts to get activating Fauna Shaman, and if there's one thing we've seen from Boss, it's that when a Boss Naya deck gets to do its thing.
That's right. Is this Boss Naya?
Yeah, I mean,
guess.
Fauna Shaman and Birthing Pod are just so good in Boss's deck. If he ever gets to do anything with it, it's going to spiral out of control.
So Joe vials in his Batterskull, which he returned several turns ago, a couple turns ago, at the end of Brian's turn.
It's just way too conservative, leaving 3 mana open to try to protect it from artifact removal. You don't got that kind of time.
He's really going all in on Batterskull, and like you said, he doesn't have that much time to.
It's not like he has any way to catch up going long. He has to try to tempo Boss out. He doesn't have time to play around all this stuff.
So he passes the turn, and Brian's going to vial in something. Looks like he's going with Batterskull.
Did he pass the turn, or did he attack with the Batterskull?
He may have attacked with Batterskull. I'm not sure, unless he's just that worried about.
Yeah, I think they block. I think.
No, that's what he's doing. He's attacking with Batterskull. Sorry.
And this is another one of those things. Why bounce it? If you would have just slid it over to something else, you'd have such a better presence on the board.
Yeah. So both players just gained 4 life there.
Which obviously favors Boss in this scenario.
Yeah, and Boss has his second Stoneforge Mystic, activating that to play a Bonehorde. Now I wonder how big that Bonehorde is. Definitely.
And it's getting ever bigger from these Fauna Shaman activations.
Yeah, and I think he just activated Fauna Shaman, discarding Phyrexian Metamorph. And he's getting, is it Silvok Replica?
Yeah, so they can just sit and play, threatening anything that Joe does, Like, he knows that the only thing Joe has going on now is this Batterskull.
Yeah.
So the Silvok Replica can just sit and play, threatening to mess it up at will.
Yeah.
It's tough because this Blue Manji Callblade Hybrid forsakes any possible catch-up cards. There's no Day of Judgments, no Gideons, nothing that can really help him turn the tables when things get too far behind. so many of these decks just kind of come from the position of, well, I want to give myself the best chance to win, even if it means that if I fall behind, I lose. You know, I just want to try to not fall behind.
Players,
from
that
the
is
get-go.
time in the round. Active player finished the turn. Please complete 5 additional turns.
So despite Joe being up 26 to 21 in life, I think that Joe probably doesn't have more than 2 or 3 turns before this one's a wrap.
Yeah.
If that. I mean, the Bone Horde and the Batterskull and the Vengevine are putting so much pressure on Joe.
Yeah, he's basically just...
and Joe still has 6 or 7 cards in his hand.
Right, and all he's playing with is Batterskull. He just keeps returning it and replaying it and not doing nothing else.
I just don't think he's got that kind of time. Like, Brian is advancing his game.
Yeah, so Brian gets in with Vengevine, and did he just attack with Fauna Shaman?
God, just imagine if you put if he had the Batterskull on a Stoneforge Mystic, then he could be threatening to hold everything off.
Yeah.
Except the Bone Horde.
Yeah, I wonder how big that... Oh, because there's the Bone Horde also attacked there. I didn't even see it up top there, so... Bone Horde, Vengevine, in the red zone right now. That is Fauna Shaman tapped right there too, right? Next to the Vengevine?
There's nothing wrong with a little Fauna Shaman beatdown. Come on.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know...
Dude, Boss isn't above it.
I guess how good it's done for him so far. I would
What's he going to fight with?
Yeah.
Joe has 2 Stoneforge Mystics.
Yeah. So Joe, of course, is vialing in the Batterskull, or forging it in, I guess.
The judge was incorrect about his life total.
Okay, we've got a life total correction. Okay.
So he was not able to Stoneforge down the Batterskull. Or just chose not to.
Yeah,
deciding
he saw,
instead to be
saw
more
the
conservative.
Silvok replica there, over there. Figures maybe that's not a good idea. So now he has acidic slime.
How in the world does he have time for all this?
I guess he's going to hit that replica? I mean, if he's so far on that Batterskull plan...
You have to hit the Bone Horde or you're dead next turn. Right? Like, he has to hit Bone Horde.
It seems like it, yeah. It's a,
Like
how big is that Bone Horde, do we know?
Bone Horde would just... Yeah, he has to hit the Bone Horde or else it just move
Yeah,
to a Bird of
okay.
Paradise and kill him in
Yeah.
one hit.
Yeah, it's it's kind of
And
irrelevant
Sword of War
now
and Peace.
because he killed it, but... So Brian vials in Sword of War and Peace at the end of Joe's turn, and...
Joe conservatively keeping 6 or 7 cards in his hand.
Yeah, I really wonder what those are, because all
Well,
we've really
the several are Vengevines, and several are Jace the Mind Sculptors.
Okay.
Just way, way, way too conservative in this one.
So Brian equips the Sword of War and Peace to a Bird of Paradise.
It'd be really weird to do the math and figure out if there's any way that Joe lives through this turn.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has any chance of living through this turn.
Who knows? You know, maybe he can block a bunch.
He can block 3 guys. Alright, just Alpha Strike.
And Stoneforge Mystic Beatdown begins. Silvok Replica getting in there because why not get busy?
Yeah, I mean...
I mean, that's another damage. Sure.
I mean, how many... Joe's got like 6 cards in hand, right?
Yeah.
So Joe is going to need a Divine Offering for the Sword of War and Peace next turn. And...
What are you talking about next turn?
like...
I don't think he lives through this attack. I mean, if he lives through this attack, Cunning Spark Mage finishes him off. Like, I don't even think he lives through this attack. Like, I just...
No, I bet he lives through the attack. I bet he's at like 2 or something.
Okay.
Why do the math? So, okay, he lives through the attack, he draws Divine Offering, he Divine Offerings the Sword of War and Peace. He...
So he goes up
God,
to 5.
it's gonna be... So, then he's gonna need some more blockers. He's gonna need Boss to not draw any gas. There's no Fauna Shaman in play anymore, right?
I don't think so.
If he can keep the Acidic Slime in play, he'll at least have a blocker for the Vengevine.
Okay, so... Alright, so...
Yeah, because if the Acidic Slime blocks the Silvok Replica...
Okay, so no, it looks like he's going with Stoneforge. Yeah, they're arranging things a little bit better. So right now we've got Birds of Paradise with a Sword of War and Peace attacking, alongside 2 Stoneforge Mystics, a Silvok Replica, I think the Fauna Shaman and a Vengevine. attacking. It's hard to tell what's down under the Open Series Denver, but
I mean, he's taking 9, from
yeah,
the, like
1,
8 or
2,
9
3,
from
4,
the bird
5.
alone, right?
Right. Like that's what I'm saying. Like if he has 6 cards in hand, he's taking 5 from the creatures that are unblocked. So he goes to 7, loses 6 more from the sword, goes to 1. Cunning Spark Mage finishes him off.
Well, no, he's only taking 4 from the unblocked creatures, right? Like 2 from the bird and 2 from the stone forges.
Oh, okay, I did that math wrong.
Yeah,
1,
he's
2,
gonna be at
3,
2.
4.
With a Spark Mage in play.
Yeah, so
next turn he needs to play. He needs to draw a land, a Divine Offering, and a Linval.
so he actually used the Spark Mage to finish off that acidic slime. Yeah, he is. Yeah. So, sorry, getting a little bit of off-screen communication happening, but for those of you just joining us, I'm Joey Pasco, here with Patrick Chapin, who just took a step out, going to be replaced here with Glenn Jones momentarily.
Hello.
We're here in Denver, in one of the cooler venues that we've
Yeah,
had.
it's pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big football fan, so it's just cool to like see other teams' stadiums.
Had you not been to this one before?
I've never been to Denver before. So.
What are some other ones you have been to?
Really,
That were
just the Ravens Stadium.
Okay.
You know, in Baltimore, and I don't think I've been to any other football games.